the barrier is no longer that what the technology can do. The barrier is now, can you dream it up and can you get people to adopt it?
The change is coming, and you have two options. You can try and get ahead of it and embrace the change, or you can wait until you have to change.
If you're in this industry, you probably work 60 to 80 hours a week. And so I think our first benefits we're going to get from AI are going to be like, can we just get people back to working a normal work week?
If you could say one thing to executives out there in construction right now who are maybe battling with this AI and tech and adoption, what would it be? Hello and welcome back to the Human Side of Construction podcast, where we provide construction leaders the insights they need to improve the industry and the great people in it. I'm here today with a very special guest, Mr. Kris Lengieza, Field COO at Procore. He started in the field as a project engineer. He spent 20 years in construction operations and now travels the world meeting the people shaping the future of what construction will look like. Today, we're getting into the real state of AI in construction, no fluff, the workforce cliff, and the human role in all of it. Kris, I'm honored for you to be here. Thanks for coming on the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, and really appreciate it, Angelo. I've been a follower for a long time, so this is exciting for me.
Likewise. I don't know who's more excited here, but so I always like to kind of start at the beginning, right? Because you're doing some really cool stuff now, cutting edge. Obviously, Procore is a massive company doing really cool things. But, Kris is the person you started in the field as a project engineer, hard hat, job site, everything. So when you think back to Kris in the early days, what was one thing the technology era had wrong? And when you noticed that there was an actual need here that you could contribute to?
Yeah, I think what was really interesting for me is, the people aspect of this industry is so incredibly critical. And so no matter what we do, we can't technology our way past people, right? And I think, while we introduced all kinds of tech, like, digital drawings, platforms like Procore, now we're seeing the implementation of AI. One of the things that's really stood the test of time on this is like how we get work done. And I think it's a really interesting time that we're in right now is how we've digitized. We've done a lot of digitizing over the last several years. And I think what we might have gotten wrong is we haven't really transformed yet. And that's why I'm so excited right now with what's happening in our industry and the introduction of AI is I think it's allowing people to think about solving problems in our industry differently than they ever have before. And that gets me excited. It brings me back to like, I was an early BIM guy. And so I was like this excited when I started to get into 3D modeling and I was like, this is going to change construction. We didn't quite get there. And so I've got that same excitement again now with what we're seeing with some of the evolution of AI and some of the other introductions of tools into the industry that we have today.
So can you think back, like, was there a specific moment? Like BIM was a perfect example, right? Because that was a cutting edge thing and people were all excited about it. But I think it's the same, it's analogous to AI right now. Because I remember when BIM came out, there was a mandate from owners and GCs saying, we have to do BIM on this job. It's like, well, what does that mean? Because there's different levels, what's getting modeled, LOD, whatever. And AI is the same. I think there's a big push. We need to implement technology. We need AI. And that's being driven from above. And it's absolutely right because the opportunity is huge. But what does that mean for people where the rubber meets the road in the field? You know what I mean? So going back to that moment where you had this kind of aha, tech is the solution here. Was there a specific moment or a sequence of events you can remember going back?
I think I go back to sitting in the job site trailer and honestly flipping and stamping sets of drawings, right? Like that was like my realization of like, I am not adding any value to this project right now by doing this task, but I know I need to do it. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. And at that point for me, it was when I started to when I stumbled onto like digital drawing platforms. At that time, like it was Bluebeam, right? And it was like, hey, I can actually like view all of these things on a desktop. I can mark them up, stamp multiple copies, ship them off. Our architect was in Denver, Colorado. We were in Florida. Like we had all kinds of reasons to not be shipping hard sets of plans, right? And so we finally got the implementation of a piece of technology that was usable enough for us to go do that. So that was like, hey, this could really change where I spend my time. And that was the aha moment for me because I was like, I'm going to spend less time doing what I felt was administrative work of like receiving and stamping plans and copying markups between things. And now I'm going to spend more of my time out in the field and I'm going to like be at the work front and like try and solve problems. And
Mhm.
today, when I look at what, project engineers and project managers and superintendents, right? I get excited about AI the same way because I go, wait a minute, like how much time do we spend just reviewing submittals, right? We spend a tremendous amount of time looking at the specs, looking at the drawings, making sure things are in compliance. We get three
Mhm.
quarters of the way through it and realize that it's not the thing that we needed. We're going to send it back to somebody and then we're going to repeat that process all over again, when that couple of hours could have been time that I spent walking a job site, trying to solve a field situation, trying to coordinate a schedule, trying to, maintain quality of a mock-up, like pick all of these things that we could be doing to actually improve the project, the product that we're delivering at the end of the day. And so like I get excited today because I'm like, all right, well, let's take the time that we spend on those tasks down to zero, the same way we did with digital drawings, to
Mhm.
now workflows instead of just, one document or something along those lines.
Right. Yeah, and that's the evolution of where we're going.
Mhm.
I love that outlook, and from following your work and having previous conversations, you understand the nuts and bolts. And
Yeah.
that's probably why you've experienced success and why Procore has. Because it seems like you and the company, they advocate for the customer, not the product.
Yeah.
And I think whenever I have a tech vendor reach out, I always entertain. I love doing demos, I love having conversations. And it's funny because majority of them, probably 90%, are tech people coming into our space. And us big proud construction people are like, you don't understand my problems, so you can't fix them. So how have you kind of navigated that relationship? Because I think
Yeah.
construction has a complicated relationship, I'll say,
Yeah.
with tech vendors. So how do you earn that trust in that space?
It's exactly that. It's trust, right? And I mean, I'll be honest. I was a Procore customer before I came to work here. So for about 3 to 4 years before I came to work at Procore, I was using the product every single day. And one of the things that I experienced in working with Procore was, hey, there were a bunch of people on the other side of the fence there that actually did the job that I did, and they
Mhm.
understood the pain that I was having. And when I jumped on board to come to Procore, it was because I was like, hey, I want to take what I'm doing and I want to scale it, and I want everyone in the industry to take advantage of it. And so that was what made me make that jump. But yeah, there's really like three core things that I think make me like really to be a proud Procorian. We call ourselves Procorians. Is like, one is like we've always been founded and focused on construction. Like we started in this industry. We've brought on a lot of people from this industry, right? Because we want to deeply understand what our customers are. We're only working for construction, whether you're an owner, a contractor, right? A trade, a vendor, like we're focused on this industry. And that's a lot of knowledge that is built up inside of the walls of Procore that helps us service our customers really, really well. And I think that's the thing that has afforded us the opportunity to build a platform that serves this industry really, really well. And now with, the acquisition of Data Grid and what we're doing and launching, agents that are specifically geared at the processes and the pain that construction people have, whether that's submittal review, whether that's RFI creation, whether that's takeoff, whether that's just finding information, right? We've built this AI powered platform that allows us to focus on the workflows that our customers go through every single day. And
Mhm.
then, like, we also see ourselves very much as more of a partner to our customers, and a partner across their whole journey and every step of the way, if you will. So, we want to be there for them, not just because we're a technology vendor, but because we know that there's a labor problem. We know that AI is new to our industry. We want to help educate the industry about what AI in construction actually means. It's why we put out a training course around it. It's why
Mhm.
we support so many associations and organizations. It's why we're in universities, is because we understand that solving the challenges that our industry faces is more than showing up with a piece of software. And so, like, those are the things that like get me excited when I like show up to a customer meeting. And in my new role as our field COO, I spend a lot of time meeting with executives and talking to them. And 90% of our conversations aren't about our product.
Mhm.
They're about what's happening in the industry right now. They're about the changes that are happening in this industry right now. They're about how we can help them solve for their business challenges beyond just, hey, I need a good project management software. We're now starting to talk about like, hey, how are we dealing with the evolution of AI in construction? How are we going to
Mhm.
shepherd our customers there? How are we going to make sure that the individual is getting value from this, not just the company, right? And those are fun conversations to have because these are relationships that have been built over years of interactions that we've had with our customers. And we have over 17,000 customers all around the world. I was just in London last week meeting with customers over there. I've learned more about how to build in the UK and Ireland through our customers and what's
Mhm.
different. And that's really fun for me too, because I'm always learning new things. There's so much expertise.
Oh, for sure. And locally, geographically, there are, I mean, we're all building the same types of buildings, but there are
Yes.
differences, right? Like I've heard UK, Europe, it's a bit of a different ball game, and they're ahead of us in a lot of different regards. Maybe not so much on the tech side, but in terms of safety and means and methods. And what's really
Yes.
neat about what you're talking about too is, it's not just a product. You're essentially building a community too. Because
Mhm.
yeah, locally, GC specialty trades, we compete against each other.
Mhm.
But we're pulling from the same labor pool. We're pulling the same resources in a lot of cases, and we're facing the same challenges. So I think
Mhm.
it's important for leaders to, yeah, you have to protect your P&L. I get it. Where the businesses exist to make money, but let's work together to a certain extent to get rid of the common challenges and the common barriers, so we can all make money and have success.
Well,
So,
and in construction, we have a lot of employee-owned companies, right? And
mhm,
so, making money for the company is not always a bad thing, especially when every employee that you have is an owner, right? Like I think in the last week, I've been on site with, three, four, five different customers. I think almost four of them were employee-owned. And so you're actually putting money in the pockets of your employees many times when you are focusing on how do we drive some more efficiency. How do we make sure that we're delivering for the business? And it's not always
right.
necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah. So on that, I think it was you who kind of used the phrase optimistic pessimism when it came to how contractors view approaching
Yeah.
AI. So maybe let's unpack that a little bit. Like there's two elements to that, right? There's obviously optimism about what can happen, but there's a little bit of fear and unknown about the change. So maybe let's address those two. Like what are some things we're optimistic about? And in your conversations with executives and other leaders, what are they actually afraid of? Like what's at the core of that hesitation?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there is, listen, I think there are a lot of things that are changing very, very quickly. And so people are very excited about the art of the possible, right? There's been things that we've been wanting to have for a very, very long time in this industry, right? We've been talking about how to fight this productivity curve,
Hmm.
right? And how to like actually make a dent in what we can actually deliver. And the global construction industry is only growing and the demand is there more than it ever has been before. And you look at data centers, you look at infrastructure, you look at all the things that need to be built. Like, candidly, like if we could build faster, the world would take it. Right.
Hmm.
And so, we have to solve for some of this. So there's a lot of optimism that things like AI are going to unlock some of that productivity. But we are an industry built on trust. We might as well all be from Missouri, which is the show me state, right? They want proof, right? And so I think that's where a little bit of some of the pessimism may come from, which is, hey, there's been a lot of talk about AI in construction for a while, right? And people are
Yeah.
really going, okay, what is actually happening here? Like what's different now, right? And I think people see what's happening out in other parts of the world, right? In other industries and what's happening in coding and engineering, right? And they're going, okay, well, what are going to be the use cases? And I think this is like where we've really put our focus is like, how do we build the things that are going to be purpose built for the construction industry? Very, very specific use cases that actually do work, right? Aren't just like help you like surface information,
Hmm.
right? But actually like do work for the people, right? Because at the end of the day, we're trying to improve the lives of the people that work in this industry, of everybody in construction. And the way to do that is to make their job a little bit easier, right? And
Right.
I often talk about the ways and this is why I'm so optimistic, but I think also where people are a little pessimistic sometimes around AI construction. Everybody's worried that it's going to displace jobs, right? That project engineers, the majority of their job is to go and review submittals, do RFIs, find things in drawings, get information for the field. Like if we can do all that with AI, like what's going to happen? And what I would tell you is there's really like three steps or three buckets that AI is going to take us through. And the first is like, listen, you know this as well as I do. You're in this industry. You probably work 60 to 80 hours a week. It's just pretty much the norm for just about everybody, which is unfortunate why we have so many challenges with mental health and
Mhm.
stress and things that are in this industry. And so I think our first like benefits we're going to get from AI are going to be like, can we just get people back to working a normal work week and take a little
Mhm.
bit of the burden off of them? So if you take that 60 hours, let's say, and you get it down to 40, okay, cool. Everybody takes a little bit of a breath, right? And we just improving employee satisfaction a little bit. The
Mhm.
next bucket is okay, now like let's improve some more and some more efficiency. And now we go, okay, actually now the things that you're trying to do, maybe they only take you 20 of your 40 hours, right? It's not like those people aren't going to find other things to do because there is a laundry list of things that we all know that we should be doing more of, more job site walks, more quality inspections, you name it, things that like humans need to put eyes on. They'll fill
And a lot of
yeah,
and a lot of times those are the higher impact items that you don't have time for. But if you were able to focus on those and not the minutia, it would have a better
that's right.
impact on the project, right?
Yeah,
Sorry to interrupt.
you'd absolutely be adding value to the project by doing that. Like,
Yeah.
let me look at 10 different scheduling scenarios instead of two, right? Like, there's all these things that we would fill our time with that would add value to the project. So that's bucket number two. And then I think bucket number three is, yeah, eventually, in the future, we may get to a point where we get even efficient enough at those things that we go, oh, okay, it's $100 million job. Maybe we don't need three project engineers. We need two, right? And
Mhm.
so now I can go
Mhm.
take on more work because actually I didn't have the people with the right experience to go do the work. And now I do because I can stretch them a little bit further. And so
Yeah.
I think that's the pessimism sometimes is like people are worried about what it's going to impact in jobs. I think people are worried about what we're going to do to learning, right? And like how people learn in this industry. And I think that people don't trust it quite yet because for a lot of folks it's a kind of a little bit of a black box. And
For
I think
sure.
this is why we've really focused on building things that are around processes and distinct workflows that people know and understand really, really well, that can be repeated and done well and doing action for them. So they can see it, they can test it, they can get access to that information faster. And, we have to increase the productivity in our industry just to release the pressure valve a little bit that is on
Yeah.
our industry and our people right now.
No, that's a great take on it. And that's how so a couple things come to mind as you were talking there. Number one, like the hesitancy to adopt like that pessimism. Some people say, "Oh, I don't know if I can trust it, hallucinations, this and that." I'm like, first of all, yeah, AI is going to make mistakes, but you know who else makes mistakes, Kris? People. I make mistakes.
Interns make mistakes and we don't fire them when they make a
I made
mistake.
what I make mistakes every day, but you learn from them. So
Yeah.
that's not it. To me, it's change. It comes down to change management. We have to
Yeah.
fundamentally change how we think and view and the processes and the means and methods that have worked for the last century, because we're building the same way for the last few decades and it's
Yeah.
worked. Jobs have gotten built, companies have made money, people have provided houses for their families. And now we're asking people to change that. And I think it's all the change management piece. So on that, touching on the human side, now we're getting into
Mhm.
it. With change
Mhm.
comes uncertainty and unknown and anxiety, right? So, what would you say to people who are out there listening, thinking like, okay, well, these guys are talking about, in a few years, this software is going to be able to replicate my job.
Yeah.
What would you tell that person that might be feeling a little bit of fear or anxiety?
You shouldn't be afraid of that. And I know everybody says this, right? It's not AI that's going to take your job. It's the person who knows how to use it, right? Like, but there's a lot of truth to that, right? And so if you are knowledgeable in what you do, turn that into a skill that is going to be valuable to your business and to other people. And I think like one of the best examples of this, and I've been really excited to see how our customers have actually adopted AI and the tools that we've rolled out. We recently had, and we just mentioned it on a recent earnings call. We had a customer that brought like 80 people to our office in Austin to build agents,
Hmm.
right? And so if you think about this, like that doesn't sound like an organization that's worried or a group of people that are very worried about their job being displaced. They seem like a group that are trying to take the expertise that they have up here and making it scalable and available to everybody in their organization. And that mindset, in my opinion, is going to be the thing that actually accelerates you, like as in your career. Um, I experienced this. Go back to the BIM example for early on. When I got into the BIM side of construction and started to work across 20, 25 projects at a time, I saw a lot of construction. I became a very indispensable resource to my organization because of the skill that I had built and because I wasn't seeing 1 or 2 jobs a year that I was working on. I was
Mhm.
seeing 20. I saw a lot of stuff and I learned really, 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 really fast, right? So take that and flip it and make it AI, right? So now I become a go-to resource inside of my organization for how to use AI to get really, a lot of repetitive work done. And I go and I build an agent that does submittal review, maybe, right?
Mhm.
Now I'm like Jacob, who worked with like level 10, who was one of the first people that deployed Data Grid to do submittal review. And now he's being asked to lead AI adoption for the whole organization, right? And
Wow.
so, like, it shouldn't be something you're afraid of taking your job, it'd be something that you want to grab onto
Mhm.
and use as a superpower for you to catapult you moving forward. It's only going to be disruptive to you if you just try and pretend it doesn't exist.
Oh, 100%. And that's, I've said this before, I'll say it again. A year ago, I was one of those people. I was resistant. I was like, you
Yeah.
know what? This thing's a fad. It's been around, ChatGPT, blah, blah, blah. And then I came to a point I realized, Angelo, this is not a fad. And you know what? The change is happening. The change is coming. And you have two options. You can try and get ahead of it and you can try and adopt it and embrace the change, or you can wait until you have to change.
Yeah.
And then your back's up against a wall and your options are a lot more limited. So that's the advice I always give to people. Get in, FAFO, get around, try and play, make mistakes, figure out how it can work. Just mess around a little bit, see what tools work, see what doesn't, and have it add value. And another point too, and you kind of alluded to it, we can touch on it here, is you look at globally construction, right?
Mhm.
There's an increased demand on infrastructure, not only new builds, but infrastructure renewals, because the
Mhm.
existing
Mhm.
infrastructure is
Mhm.
crumbling. Okay? So there's going to be more to build. There's going to be less people to build it because, by 2031, 40 or whatever, 45% of the workforce is going to retire. We're talking 4 or 5 million people. So you need this much done with this many people. What's going to fill that gap? Technology. We need it to. We need it to augment the workforce. So it's not going to displace people. It's going to compensate for that gap that's being created by the need and the shortage in supply. Am I making sense?
100%. And, I was recently with a customer the thing that I love, if you actually can use AI to your advantage, you can actually learn very, very quickly. So if you've ever used like Claude before, right, you watch how it like kind of reasons through the steps of all the things that it's doing.
Mhm.
And, in when I came up in the industry, the way that I learned was I went and I sat down with the senior superintendent on my job site every morning. I bought him a $2 egg and cheese sandwich from the restaurant across the street, and I would get 10 minutes of his time. And I would ask him of all of these things I had questions about the day before. And he would sit there, he would drink his coffee, eat his egg and cheese sandwich, he'd answer any questions that I could fire at him in that time. That's how
Mhm.
I learned, right? And then it was, okay, I went on job site walks with superintendents, but like you had this very like one-to-one mentorship, right? I think what people are worried about is how will people learn as we move forward. And if you work with some of those AI, some of the AI platforms, as Data Grid is like this as well, it shows you its thinking throughout the steps,
Mhm.
right? And so if we do a good job of building good agents, right, that have the right reasoning, that know how to step through a problem, if you pay attention as you're using it, you're going to understand how it got there. And you're going to go, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense, right? What other follow-up question do I need to ask there? And this is where I think like we have this opportunity to like learn faster about things that we don't necessarily know
Mhm.
because we have access to something that has baked in knowledge that we are not getting anywhere else because nobody has time to sit down for even that 10 minutes and answer all your questions today. I guarantee it, right? Like that seems like a foreign concept. And so I get excited that people will actually learn faster in some cases. The
Yeah.
question is, Are we training the AI and the agents on the right things to
Mhm.
teach our people the right things? And definitely an open question.
I just made a note here, egg and cheese sandwich and coffee. Get you a lot. But no, and that's a really good point because when the talk of the labor shortage comes up, there's a lot of focus on the numbers, right? And everybody's like,
Yes.
"Oh, yes, recruitment and
Yeah.
yeah, recruitment is the tip of the spear. You're going to
Yeah.
bring in warm bodies, but an 18 or 19-year-old girl or guy at a high school or college is not equivalent productivity, safety, all this to a 30-year journey person who's had their ticket for years and has faced every problem under the sun. So, on one hand, it is, a numbers game, but the qualitative aspect I think can be solved by recruitment and retention. We need to work on retention.
Mhm.
But the qualitative aspect, we're essentially dealing with knowledge extinction event here with all
Yeah.
this mass exodus retiring, right? So I think that's what you're talking about, is capturing that knowledge. So does Procore do that, or are there other softwares out there that that do that, capture project information that can be used for mentorship or coaching or some sort of predictive analytics using historical information?
Yeah. I think, one of the things that I like to describe every time you create an RFI in Procore, every time you approve a submittal, you're making a decision, right? And so you're actually creating a little bit of knowledge on why you did that. You make a comment about why things were revised and resubmit. You make a comment on a suggested solution to an RFI. You approve a change order from a trade contractor, right? Those are all decisions, and when you have them in context, you can reason across them and they become something that you can teach someone else, right?
Hmm.
The other thing that I think is really important to think about is how we collect a lot of that information. And I love this example. Like, if you're a superintendent, you probably get to the trailer in the morning, you have a cup of coffee, and then you head out into the field, and you probably don't come back until 5 or 6 p.m., right? Like, maybe you come back for lunch, or maybe you just grab something off the lunch truck, whatever it might be out in the field. Like, but you don't have a lot of time free, right? And those people see everything that happens on the job site every single day, and they know what's going on if you ask them. Now, the way to capture what's happening on the job site is a daily log. And so, what do we ask for them to do today? We ask them to open up an app, type some stuff in, maybe upload a couple pictures, right? And what do you
Hmm.
get? You get a few sentences, you get some counts of people, right, that are there, maybe a little bit of detail about what happened on the job site that day. But I can guarantee you, if you sat down with that superintendent for 5 minutes, either on their drive home or at the end of the day, you would get a data dump of information that would be so rich, that would tell you everything that happened, which inspections were missed, what was progress in certain areas,
Hmm.
everything that they could think of, right? And so, like, one of the things that we're really excited about is what we're doing with voice agents and the ability to change the way that people interact with the tools. And so, you want to do a daily log, don't go type it in. The daily log agent knows what you're looking for. It's going to say, "Hey, help me do my daily log." Okay, tell us a
Right.
little bit about what happened today. And you start to ramble on in your own language, because we all can talk. We can all communicate with our language, whether that's in English, whether that's in French, whether that's in Spanish, Creole, you name it, right?
Hmm.
But now that agent also has all of the data that's already been collected that day inside of Procore as well. And so
Right.
it starts to bring all these things together and goes, okay, we've created the daily log for you. We'd like for you to review it, right? So this is where the human becomes very important, because there's an art too of, like, what do I put in the daily log versus and way things are worded. Sometimes we don't want the expletives, right? So, like, we're
Hmm.
probably going to go and, like, review that before it actually gets published into the system of record, which, for a lot of people is Procore. And now that's another data point to inform other things. I can go look at the photos. I can look at the daily log. I can start to estimate progress. I can start to do forecasts on how much work is left to be done. Right.
Yeah.
These are all things that, we can unlock for people, because now we're making it easier for them to collect the information, where we have a semblance of all of the things happening on the job site, because we go from end to end, and we understand the AI can make sense of how those things are interconnected as well. which gives you a lot of insights and a lot of knowledge that can be used to train the next project or to inform the next project as well.
That's a couple of interesting things that come to mind, and that's very
Mhm.
powerful there. For change management, going back to that piece, I think two important things. You got to meet people where they are,
Mhm.
and you have to show them the benefit to them.
Yep.
So in this case, that voice agent is a perfect example of that,
Mhm.
because I'm sure no super, I know I don't like doing it. I don't like sitting in an office writing in a book or typing, what did you do today? That's why you get bare minimum things. So you're meeting them. They can do it on their truck, on their way home in the truck, chatting with the voice agent, right? And then an unfiltered version goes in, somebody reviews it, like you said. But the other piece of that too is, I think, going back to the whole change management and mindset shift. It's a stupid question for you. Why do you think daily logs exist? What are they used for now in construction companies?
They're used to basically just disputes, if you will.
Exactly.
They're a
Cover
record
your
to
ass.
avoid cover your ass. Exactly.
Cover your ass. Okay. So, but now we can shift that. Instead of
Yeah.
saying you have to do this because it protects the company, you should do this because it's going to help the future of the industry. It's going to help you leave your legacy. You're going to help leave a mark and help, you know what I mean? I'm getting tingles now. Maybe I'm getting too warm and fluffy, but like, that's what we need to sell people on, right? Like, they have all this knowledge in their heads that they've accumulated over years and years. It would be a shame for it to go to waste. And this is a perfect example of how to get it out to help people and help the industry.
I love that. I love that concept, right? Of like, you are writing your own novel, and every day is a new page in the novel, right? That you could hand to somebody and they can understand the story of this project, right? And that
Mhm.
is all knowledge that you can impart on someone else. Like, wouldn't you want to provide as much detail to that as possible? And we should make it as easy for them as absolutely possible too. And I think that's where they're like AI and the technology today and building things that are specifically for this industry is gonna, I get excited about what it unlocks
Mhm.
because and you mentioned this earlier, like the barrier is not going to be the technology anymore. The barrier is going to be how willing are we to change and do the things that we need to really transform the way that we work.
Yeah.
And that's the conversation I'm having right now with executives is like, how are you thinking about your business differently as we move forward based on what you might be able to do now? It's going to maybe change your hiring strategy. It might change the markets you go after. It might, change your capacity planning. There's so many things that we can go and look at differently because we no longer have some of the either technology or process barriers that we
Yeah.
may have had at one point in time.
No, I think when it comes to any change, right? People only change when they absolutely have to. I think this happens at a personal level.
Yeah,
I've talked
yeah,
to people who have gone through crisis and hit rock bottom, and that was the moment that things changed for them because they didn't have any other options. There was nowhere to hide. There was nothing else they could do. They
yeah,
had to face their demons and change. I feel like we're there in construction, Kris. I feel
yeah.
like we're in that moment where we're realizing we're kind of screwed here, folks, and we got to do something about it. So to me, it's a little bit terrifying being somebody in your vintage who's been doing it for 20 years, but it's also extremely exciting because there's a huge opportunity to do things differently. And, for professional or for companies, obviously there's opportunity to get out there, grab market share and make money, but also people who are willing to step into roles and solve these problems and be part of the solutions. The sky is the limit with this stuff, right?
I think right now is such an exciting time to be in this industry. For I'm going to list three reasons. One is the spotlight is actually on our industry because of what's happening in the built world and infrastructure and data centers and power. When was the last time that you ever heard earnings calls from major companies talk about the shortage of construction labor? That didn't
Mm,
happen. And so, like, there is a level of awareness that there is huge opportunity in construction, more so than there ever have. And like the industry is building the things that are changing the world right now. And so there are more and more people coming into this industry that never really thought about it in a past life, which I think is really, really exciting. Two is I think there is an opportunity to really change the way that we work, right? I talked
Mhm.
about the fact that we've digitized, but we haven't transformed. And I think you're going to see some, putting my little like futurist glasses on, you're going to see some people really take a very different approach to the way that they build and they get projects done and break some of the, well, we do it that way because that's the way that we've always done it, right? Like I
Mhm.
can give you an example. I have a contractor that I did another podcast with recently, and he talked about how they were starting to pay subs daily.
Oh, wow.
Like that breaks the paradigm of the 30-day pay application and maybe get paid in 80 to 90 days, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
like people are starting to think about what's now possible that might not have been possible previously.
Mhm.
And then I think the last piece is like this is like a time for people to write their tickets. Construction's always been a entrepreneurial industry. Like a lot of small family businesses gets created. A lot of people do very, very well for themselves. And I think, if you're in this industry, like you talked about us retention, but like this is an opportunity for a lot of people to apply these technologies to get rid of the mundane, the boring, the repetitive, right? And start to focus on new problem solving and really start to like change things that, maybe we just didn't have the time, energy, effort to go do before because we were so mired down with other things, right? Yeah, we can now automate submittals. We can now automate RFIs. We can streamline the daily log process. We can,
Mhm.
heck, we just launched a contract review agent, right? Like, think about the time you spend poring over a contract. Like, these are things now that we can solve that allow you the time to go and create new value streams inside the industry. And that's just really exciting to me.
Totally. Yeah. You can almost create your destiny to some extent. And I
Yeah.
think there's probably a lot of people who hear this podcast and younger folks I've talked to that, you can't argue that the younger generation, they're smarter than we were. They're more tech savvy and they're ambitious, right? And they might think that people running companies are just kind of slowing down or in their way or not wanting to change. So I'm interested to hear because, when you prepared the future state report, you were all over the world, right? You were running workshops, you were talking to leaders, forcing them to think 10, 20 years out. What are the conversations in those rooms? Like, is it pretty consistent? Do you see the same hesitations? Is everybody kind of thinking the same thing, seeing things in the same lens, or is it a real mix of people at the top?
Yeah, it's very interesting. There's quite a bit of a mix. And there are companies that are really trying to change the paradigm in big ways. And then there are companies that, hey, we've done great. We've been very profitable. We've grown a great size family business here. Why am I going to shake this up? Right. I got a good thing going. And so it is a
Hmm.
mix kind of across the board. And even for those companies that are like, hey, I'm a little bit more risk averse. I mean, construction is a risk management business. So we're all a risk averse in this industry. So just varying levels. But I think what gets exciting is that there are more companies I see when we did the future state of construction report and we went out and we did surveys and we did interviews, and actually a little bit before that happened, the feedback we got from our customers and the executives of our customers is please stop talking about AI. We don't want to hear about it. Swear to
Hmm.
God, swear to God. I was at an executive cab meeting and they told us that, right? They're like, we don't want to hear about it. Stop talking
Yeah.
about it. The very next year, 12 months later, right? We send out our survey. What do you guys want to hear about? What do you want to talk about our ECAB? The like number one thing resoundingly was AI, right?
Yeah.
And now it's not even we want to talk about it. It's hey, we want to plan with you on how to do it, like in what we're doing, what you're doing, how we're going to bring those things together, and that's that. It's a true partnership at this point, and that's why we work so closely with the industry to really focus on the use cases that we can deliver that are going to bring value right away and actually do work. Right, I think that's really important, and I think so much of what we do is based on the feedback that we get from our customers. And that's because we only have one industry to worry about. Like we are really focused on construction and construction only.
Yeah. No, and that's important. I think and that's why you guys have been so successful is that focus and that deep industry knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So look into the future a little bit, like as things grow, we've talked, people are saying that the construction industry is going to double in the next 14, 15 years. That's huge, right? And it's going to create big problems. Tech is obviously going to play a role. What do you think has to go right? Let's break it down into two buckets here. What has to go right to enable that growth, both from a technology standpoint and a human capital, like preparing the workforce for it?
Yeah, so I think we still have to ramp up significantly on our recruitment efforts of getting people into this industry. And I think some of the things that are happening right now actually make, in other industries, are making construction a much more quote unquote sexy industry to go into
Mm,
because it seems a little bit more resilient to some. And I think that's great, right? But we need more people to come in, right? But then to your point, we need them not to show up. We need them to be well trained, right? And we need them to transfer that knowledge, and we need to give them tools that allow them to be effective, right? This
mhm,
is where the technology comes into play. And so we need technology that's built that allows them to do the work that they're trying to do, but that they have confidence in, and that their leadership teams have confidence in, and that they can customize to the needs that they have. I think in order to meet the demand of what's happening in our industry, it's not going to be like just technology. It's not going to be just people. It's not going to be just. It's going to be the old people process technology, right? We're going
mhm.
to need to change some of the ways we do things. We got to get rid of some of these old, antiquated processes
Yeah.
that are miring us down, right? And some of them we built technology around those processes. So we need to challenge that. We need people, and we need people that are willing to be curious and willing to adapt to new ways of working with new tools, right? But also be willing to learn, from those who have come before them, because there's a lot of institutional knowledge that needs to be passed down. And then we need technology that's purpose built. And that, in my eyes, is going to show up in the form of a few things. I think we're going to start to see, AI is already here, but we're going to see the rapid expansion of that. I do think we need robotics and
Mhm.
automation. Like, we need this concept of automation and augmentation. Everyone who works either on a job site or in a trailer should have things that are helping automate some of their work that doesn't require them to put hands on it all the time, and then augments them to give them superpowers, right? And that could be wearables, that could be cobots, that can be agentic AI that's doing processes for you, that you now become a bit more of an orchestrator of that. But all of those things are really focused on kind of that automation and augmentation, which will close that productivity gap, right? And it'll help up level. I think somebody said this in another industry. AI doesn't make your best engineer 10x better, but it makes your worst engineer, 20x better. And
Yeah.
so, like, I think that's like important. Like, when you think about that, is it will help up level kind of the masses in many, many ways. And
That's,
and that's important.
oh, sorry, go ahead. I think I interrupted you there.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
No, as you were talking there, I had this vision in my head of like how you were saying we build processes around these antiquated systems. And it was like, I pictured this train track that was built around this mountain. But nobody had the idea of, well, why don't we just go through it? And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think this is where the personalities and the egos get in the way.
Yeah.
Just because you question if the way we've been doing things is the best way, it doesn't mean that it was terrible or that person's
Oh,
bad for doing it that way, but it's all in language and how we communicate it. It's just working together. And it's kind of ironic in that the people that we need the most to come to terms with this change are the ones who have been doing it the same way the longest and are probably going to be the most avert to that change. So that's trying to find a way to crack that nut should be interesting.
yeah, and I think you can't just say, "Hey, we need change for change's sake." It needs to
Yeah.
make sense, right? And I think one of the challenges we run into oftentimes is people will come in and they'll look at you, go, "Why did we ever do it this way?"
Hmm.
Right? But you don't have the context of, like, why those things happen. One of my favorite topics to talk about this is around payments. Like, why do we bill on like a monthly, a 30-day cycle? Like, why do we do those things? And really, like, it's hard to get a real answer on why that was the way that it became, but it is the way that we've always been doing it. I
Yeah.
think the reason that we've continued to do it that way is because even till today, the process of tracking progress, validating work, creating pay applications, collecting compliance documentation, creating payments is burdensome, right? And so
Mhm.
the thought of doing that on a daily basis or a weekly basis is almost like mind boggling to some. But all of those decisions were made based on the technology we had at the time or the lack thereof, the processes that were in place across many different stakeholders, regulation, all these things. And now what I'm hopeful for is that we have curious people that go, okay, what's changed? Could we change this? And is it worth it? That's the
Mhm.
important question. Cause I think people sometimes will be like, yeah, we can go make this process better. We can change it, but they don't ask the question of like, am I actually going to get the return on it by changing it? And sometimes it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is, and it's, a 10Xer, right? And we go
It
after
i
those things.
it is a bit of a gamble, right? Like any type of change, it's unknown. You can run scenarios and calculate ROIs, but if a
Yeah.
couple things don't happen or don't fall into place, it could go sideways. And I think that's what stops a lot of people from stepping into change, especially the type of change we're talking about. It's like, well, what if it fails? Well, what if you keep doing it the wrong way? Like there's a cost to not doing stuff as well, right,
There's
Chris? So
definitely a cost of not doing of inaction for
yeah,
sure. And
and falling.
that's a great conversation to have internally your business too.
For sure. And there's going to be people like you said who make the decision like, no, we don't need to change.
Mhm.
And that's a business decision.
Yep.
It'll work to a certain extent. It might limit you in the future. They might be okay with that, and it's totally up to them. So, couple of questions to close out here. We've talked about a lot here, and there's a lot to be excited about. But you personally, like, what are you most optimistic about? What are you most excited about right now in the construction industry?
I am probably most excited that we are going to see a lot of new ideas in our industry. I think what we're seeing from agentic AI and the way that it is affording people the ability to automate things in their process, it's going to spur a lot of innovation.
Hmm.
And I've said this before, like the barrier is no longer that what the technology can do. The barrier is now, can you dream it up and can you get people to adopt it?
Hmm.
And so that is to me like really exciting because it affords the opportunity to so many to go and think differently. And like that's the type of environment I thrive in, which is where like it's not stamping widgets, right? It's like, how do I reimagine the widget completely? Right. And the process that goes in. And I think that's honestly for a lot of people why they leave construction oftentimes is they end up mired in this like dull, dirty, sometimes dangerous set
Hmm.
of tasks. And they're like, I'm not getting the satisfaction out of that. And so I'm really excited for people to be afforded that opportunity to kind of create and dream a bit with guardrails, of course, because there's a lot of things that we need to make sure that we don't accidentally do. So that's definitely one of the things I'm most excited about.
For sure. Yeah. Controlled risk there. No, that's
Mhm.
great. So, conversely to that, I mean, it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
what keeps you up at night? What are you concerned about with the future as it pertains to, AI or tech in construction?
I think one of the things that concerns me most is um, people not quite understanding like how important it is to have good guardrails, good data, to invest in kind of the SOPs to collect the information so you can get the best use out of the AI. I worry that people, because our industry moves so fast, because we tend to not be the easiest to trust, not meaning that we are not trustworthy, but that we don't give trust easily. I think I worry that people will try something, and if it doesn't work the first time, they will fire it, right?
Hmm.
And then they won't come back to it, right? And so that's a concern that I have. And then I also, the other concern is around like, hey, people's understanding of like what data and what things are actually exposing. And so becoming a little more knowledgeable about how things work and where your data is going and how you can use that, I think is really important. Those things that they scare me a little bit just because you'll get a lot of bad information and we haven't seen it yet, in the construction industry. We've seen it in other industries
Hmm.
where somebody's used AI, ended up coming with an answer, and it goes wildly wrong.
Yeah.
We haven't quite seen that example yet, but we will. It took years with the BIM world, where we had that first major lawsuit, which was based around the model, right? And I think we will see that example in construction at some point. And so I just worry that people aren't giving enough focus to some of those, how they set things up and how they move forward.
Right. Yeah. The responsible use. I guess that comes part and
Yep.
parcel.
Yep.
So last question, I always like to close with this one, and
Yeah.
you interact with leaders all over the world, right, in
Yeah.
construction. So if you could say one thing to executives out there in construction right now who are maybe battling with this AI and tech and adoption,
Yeah.
not what they want to hear, what they need to hear,
Yeah.
what would it be?
I think that you need to empower your people to use these tools. And you need to do it responsibly, because if you don't, you will be at a disadvantage. That's
Hmm.
like, nobody wants to hear it, but like, you have to think about how your people are going to use it either way. And so setting it up right for them, giving them some license, and giving them the ability to test and fail is actually like really, really important. And so you have to set up those frameworks inside of your company. And if you don't, then that's going to be a challenge for you.
Hmm. Awesome. No, I really appreciate that, Kris. How can people learn more, connect, or learn more about what Procore has got going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I always encourage people to head over to procore.com. The information there is always changing. We've got our innovation summit will be coming up in June. So you can follow there and find out more about what are the latest developments that are happening in construction. And if you want to connect with me, please don't hesitate to reach out to me on LinkedIn and connect there. I post pretty regularly and try and be as responsive as possible.
No, I appreciate that. I know it can be overwhelming with LinkedIn,
Yeah.
but no, I really appreciate you coming on, Kris. It's really neat to hear your perspective, personally as well as professionally through Procore, and I can't wait to see what you guys do for the industry. It's pretty exciting times.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. This has been great.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning into the Human Side of Construction podcast. If you are a company executive or a worker who wants to share a story or a challenge about how you're adopting tech or AI, please reach out. Love to have a conversation, see how we can work together. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.